Are you a healthcare provider who wears two hats, providing excellent patient care while also running a business? The competing demands can feel overwhelming at times, leaving you stressed, indecisive, and questioning if you're really living up to your true purpose. What if you could get back in control, feel invigorated about your practice, and find that long lost sense of career fulfillment? That is exactly what Thriving Practice is here to help you achieve. On this podcast will be your guides, healthcare entrepreneurs, and industry experts who have walked the same challenging path. We'll share proven strategies to streamline operations, make confident business decisions, and reignite your passion. From managing staff to marketing to work life harmony, we cover the insights you need to stop just surviving and truly start thriving. Hit subscribe now and get ready to transform your practice into the rewarding career you've always envisioned. Welcome to Thriving Practice, where outstanding patient care meets outstanding business success. It's me, your host, Tracy. I am on a mission to help private practice leaders take back their time while becoming exquisitely fulfilled, profitable business owners. My team and I are here to show you how you can slow down to speed up, grow or scale your practice while taking back your time, and achieve an increased sense of satisfaction both at work and outside of work. Because what is the point of any of this if you're not enjoying it? Welcome. In today's episode, we have a special guest who brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in healthcare marketing. Carl White, the founder of MarketVisory Group, joins us to share his insights on how private practices can thrive in today's competitive landscape. As a healthcare provider, you've likely faced challenges in attracting new patients and growing your practice. Carl's expertise in marketing for private practices is invaluable, and he's here to help you navigate these challenges with integrity and authenticity. In this episode, Carl dives deep into the importance of understanding your practice's unique value proposition and how to effectively communicate that to your target market. He shares practical tips on how to create a marketing plan that aligns with your growth goals and budget, while emphasizing the significance of consistency and patient experience. One thing you absolutely cannot miss is Carl's honest take on the realistic timeline for seeing results from your marketing efforts. He breaks down the factors that influence the success of your campaigns and provides guidance on how to choose a marketing agency that has your best interests at heart. Whether you're a seasoned practice owner or just starting, this episode is packed with actionable advice that you can implement right away. Get ready to take notes as Carl shares his wisdom on how to make your practice stand out in a crowded market and attract the patients you want to serve. So grab a pen and paper and let's dive into this insightful conversation with Carl White. Carl White, thanks for coming on today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Tracy.
I'm so happy to have you here. And we just saw each other recently, virtually. I was on your podcast, so we were doing this lovely exchange.
That's right. This is great.
I love it. Yeah. And I think I have so many things that I want to talk about, so I'll stay focused. But I think the best starting point is really tell us where you're at and then tell us about your business, what you do.
Okay. So the company's called MarketVisory Group. We're a healthcare marketing agency. We zero in on private practices and we want to help them stay private. It's just, I really believe it's better when the provider owns the practice, they're going to have the most freedom to make the clinical decisions they think are best. It's different when somebody else owns the practice. It's just anybody who's been in both models, they know inevitably the agenda of the owner starts to creep in. And it's not that that's wrong. The owner ought to have an agenda, but it's not always a clinical agenda or it's not what you think is best. So if you own it and you are the provider, then you've got both in one set of hands. And so, it's better for you. It's better for the patient. So I have been doing marketing in healthcare pretty much my entire life, not just my adult life. I've had one job that was not somewhere in the world of healthcare marketing. So growing up, family, my parents owned a pharmacy, independent pharmacy, when independent pharmacies were still a thing. They're still out there, but they're quite the rarity. And I worked in it, afternoons and weekends when I was a kid, everything, you name it. And I didn't do anything clinically related, but when you're in that environment for as long, it just starts to seep in. Um, and then I had the one job that was not, it really wasn't related, but then I got an MBA and I said, I want to go back into healthcare marketing. So I worked for a couple of really large companies. One's called Baxter. So the funny thing about Baxter is really special, very, very large company, but very specialty patient populations. Um, so if you were ever in the intensive care unit, well, you were unconscious, but you were probably surrounded by Baxter products and all the doctors and nurses know your name. And a couple of other therapeutic areas. I worked in all of them, many of those. And you learn along. I mean, I learned a couple of things along the way. One is I really, really like it. For as hard as we work, whether you're a provider, whether you're me or anybody else, it's just nice to know that somebody else at the other end of all that works a little better off. Um, I could not. This is me. I couldn't market consumer packaged goods or a lot of other things that are sort of more discretionary. I'm not that much of a consumer. It doesn't really excite me. But trying to convince a patient, or in this case a doctor, that hey, our product is good, you should consider it, here's the pros, here's the limitations, I really, really like that. And I knew that when I decided I'm going to leave corporate America and open up my own thing, I wanted to stay focused in that area. So today, MarketVisory Group, private practices, different than large corporate America, but marketing and healthcare, that's the common thread.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the things that you and I really connected over is we both have a different approach, but a very similar mission, which is to help these private practices stay private.
Mhm.
You said why, and I think it bears repeating that the patient always benefits, right? I mean, you were talking about independent pharmacies, and I was like, oh, we go to one, except for certain things that insurance says they'll only do it through a
Right.
particular, but
Yeah.
otherwise we're like, Dave at the pharmacy down the street.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that, they take the time, they answer your questions. I definitely love that from the perspective of being a patient and a parent of patients at
Yeah.
private practices. I just think it's really important.
It's
So,
nice. You know Dave knows you and your family. And
yep.
even though Dave is dispensing medication, just like the pharmacist at Walgreens or CVS is, it just feels better. And there's a little
Yeah.
bit more. The pharmacists at Walgreens are not bad people, but they're
Yeah.
but they're in a system that doesn't, let them build that personal touch. That
100%.
that matters. It matters
Yeah.
clinically.
It does. And, funny little side story. I had to, for some reason, all of our family was sort of off on our syncing up when we get prescriptions. And I happened to be the person picking them all up this one week. And I think I went in like 3 times and I was having a tough week. And the woman that was working at the register, she's like, "Are you okay?" she she noticed. She cared. And I said, "Oh yeah, it's kind of been a tough week, a lot going on." And when I saw her the next day, when I went back in, I was cracking up because I'd done something like really silly, which is why she asked if I was okay. Like I tried to run my I don't know, some other card through that wasn't a credit card. Yeah. So, or debit. And the next day she said, "Oh, you look so well rested. But I want to tell you a funny story. This morning I had a day like you were yesterday." She told this whole story about how she spilled her smoothie on the way to work and just how, everybody has days like that. And I just thought, I will always feel a connection to
Mhm.
her, to that establishment. And I think the same goes for the private practices and the patients at those practices. And while that's not really what we're here to talk about today, I just want to really, for our listeners, just really affirm that decision. You
Yeah.
likely, our listeners decided to go into private practice for a number of reasons. And one of the biggest ones is, the freedom and the space to treat your patients the way you want to be able to spend more time with them or
Yeah.
whatever your mission is, but so your
Yeah.
patients have better outcomes. And it works. That special, that connection, that it's just really important. So
Yeah.
I just really want to
Totally
highlight
agree.
that.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. So draw a big heart bubble around that and let's go back to business.
Okay.
um, so, while we were in the green room for a couple of minutes, I was saying, I think it would be helpful to talk about, understanding as a provider and an owner, understanding your numbers and understanding why one of those line items really ought to be set aside and dedicated to marketing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't come up all that often, not the marketing part, because that's what we do, but the other part where I'll say to clients or prospective clients, look, you don't need to know your numbers the way your accountant needs to know your numbers. But there's probably a few numbers that you as the owner should have your finger on the pulse of. Um, One of them, let's just go top line. So revenue,
Mhm.
whether that's, like the patient revenue in terms of dollars or it's, dollars per patient. I'm a big fan of that one, more from a marketing perspective, but it's relevant is for a typical new patient, what's the average, revenue you should expect, assuming that you deliver everything that you should. And for some practices, they say, well, we have a wide variety of services. I don't exactly know. Fine, pick some sort of consensus average. Just have something in the back of your mind. I just find that an easier way to say, all right, if our practice is, I'll make it up, $500,000 in revenue at the end of last year, and we want to grow to 600,000 by the end of this year, 2024. About how many new patients is that? How
Mhm.
many patients typically leave? So how many net new patients do we need? That's a good one, I think, to know.
Mhm.
Um, the expense lines have, and within there, and this is where your accounting firm or your revenue cycle management people can tell you a lot more granularity. But if you're taking insurance, there's a lot of variables in there. But okay, you can get to some sort of simplified number. Your expenses, you don't have to know every one, but probably know the top two or three. So your personnel costs, the ones that are real big drivers of all of your expenses. Try the 80-20 rule, right? So probably 20% of your expense lines account for 80% of what you've got going on. Not that you ignore the other ones. You want to keep an eye on them for sure. There's controls and things. But if those top 20% numbers get out of hand, you could have a problem. And that just gets to the last one, which is what kind of profitability do we need? Not want, but need, because out of profit, you pay yourself. And so, when you're starting up, when we all started up, we paid ourselves last, right? And that was out of necessity. And we wanted to do that for the least amount of time possible. But out of profit, you pay yourself at least the extra, right? There's salary and how you're incorporated and all sorts of things. I'm not an attorney either, but you should have your finger on the pulse of these numbers and you should be checking them regularly, monthly, um, to know, or how are we doing?
Yeah.
Are we on track? If we're not, what's going on? Was it just a random weird month? Was it expected? Was it not? What's going on? Because this is the business side of practice. Fortunately or unfortunately, I think it just starts with numbers. It's not a financially driven practice in the sense that you're going to make decisions based purely on the finances, but it's numbers you put in the bank, it's numbers you measure on, it's the numbers matter. So you need to know a few, and we could debate which ones they are, fine, but you need to have your finger on the pulse of a handful of the really important numbers, whatever they are. As far as marketing, um, at the end of the day, no patience, no practice, and marketing's got a role to play in that. Um, something, marketing is the sum total of resources, right? And there's time and money. Some people don't think about the time, they think about the money. And there's no hard and fast number on how much resource you should be spending on marketing. But the other thing you need with marketing is what's the growth goal? If you say, I want to double in 3 years the patient base or the revenue size, that's a very different expectation and ask of marketing than, we want to grow by, I'm really happy where I am, but I kind of want to stay and maybe grow a little bit. That's a very different ask than I want to grow a lot. I will sometimes get asked, give us a marketing plan. It's never said this way, but what do you think this? And I'll ask, how much do you need to grow? Like
Mhm.
not how much do you want to grow? How much do you need to grow? And that gets into all the numbers you should know. Because if you don't know that, then it's going to be a hard question. And so it becomes a bit more challenging to say, well, then the robustness of your marketing plan and what's in it needs to be X, because a marketing plan responds to a growth target. But, you know, you should, it sounds biased as hell, and I admit that, but marketing, there's more stuff inside of a marketing plan than you realize. So building your reputation counts. Treat patient experience, I will argue, counts. That's not an operational thing because patients talk, and they recommend. And let's face it, you are Dr. X, whether it's dental Dr. X or any other type of Dr. X or provider X. Um, you are delivering a certain level of service to your patients. If it was in a retail establishment, if it was in a restaurant, we'd say it's whatever those metrics are. But it's more than as a provider, we got the clinical decisions right. It's the rest of the patient experience too. And because you are in a competitive world, and you have competitors that others may want to choose, that matters too. And then you're back to marketing. Does that mean you spend money with people like me in marketing? No, I'm just saying it counts. And so there are plenty of practices out there that are very mature, they're established. They don't spend a lot of money on marketing per se, like what we're talking about, but they spend a lot of time thinking about, that patient was upset. Why? What else should we be doing and why? That stuff counts too. And so it's money and time and effort. And so if one's going to be short, the other one's going to compensate overall.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that because marketing, there's the really intentional marketing that fits inside of the description of marketing, where you might hire a professional to do the things for you. And then there's the whole other side of that. And whenever I have clients who want to come, if they're not, near where I am, I will meet them in the DC area where I used to live, and take them to my daughter's orthodontist there with his permission and an invitation. And part of the reason is because they do such a great job with their community engagement. And so they do all kinds of cool things that consistently keep you engaged. Now, bear in mind that you go to the orthodontist during treatment, every 3 weeks or 5 or 6 or whatever, but pretty frequently. So every month they have another challenge going on. And you'll see, like, one of their challenges is if you see their bumper magnets.
Yes.
So they do this great job. They have like monthly things. And if you take whoever gets the most pictures of bumper stickers or bumper magnets around town, like wins some kind of prize, a gift card or whatever, it's great. It keeps the patients engaged. It keeps, if it's kids, it keeps their parents engaged too. I don't know if they pay for marketing. I don't know if I've ever asked them that question. I'd be curious.
But let's pull on that thread a little bit. So
Yeah.
a lot of people confuse marketing with advertising, right? So a lot of what we, talk a lot about promotion and education and whatever it is, social, email, whatever it is, you name it, that tends to be promotion. That's not where marketing starts. Marketing starts with saying there's some market that you want to serve. So some population, that's what market means, that you want to serve. And you better figure out a way to be different and valuable to them. Otherwise, there's no reason to choose you. And it sounds like, if we just sort of make a couple of, leap of faith assumptions, that orthodontist has maybe figured out some way to be different in a way that's perceived to be valuable. Maybe this is sound how it sounds, but just, maybe that sounds like a gimmick or whatever. I don't know. But if it's grabbing people and it's authentic, then that orthodontist office has figured out something, because there's an ocean of competitors for almost any specialty you can think of. And you've got to be different in some way that's valuable to that target market. So marketing first says, well, what is that? What is that difference? You want to serve this market. And I say this to plenty of, potential clients. It's a question I ask them, when I'm sort of scoping them out and trying to figure out what to propose. So what do you think is different about you? And even those who've been around for a long time don't quite know. And it's kind of a miss. It's something that I wish was taught in medical school, dental school, along with lots and lots of other business topics. But
Right.
if you're valuable but not different, then you're a commodity. And if you're different in a way that nobody cares about, who cares, right? So you got to have that. Once you've got that, here's how we're going to serve this market. Here's how we're going to be valuable plus different. It's got to be both. Now we can promote the crap out of it, right? Now all the advertising and promotion becomes really, really interesting and fun and compelling, because you're saying something that's valuable and different. And it can be done. Sometimes you have to create it if you don't have it. With a fair number of my clients, we bring it to the surface. They've got something. It's just buried. It's just really buried, and they don't know how to articulate it. They don't know how to articulate it. And so they do it in a way that nobody understands, and it's kind of lost. But that's really where it's got to start. That doesn't have to cost a lot of money, by the way. But it's got to be there. That's That's where marketing starts.
Is that where you start with your clients or a prospective client, ask them questions, and so you draw that out of them?
So when I work with a new client, I'm kind of doing an assessment, and I'm saying, all right, if we have to find it with every client. Sometimes I'll say to a client, look, I have no idea what it is. And so I really think that before we start promoting and shouting from the rooftops how great you are, we don't know why you're so great, or at least the market doesn't understand it. So we have to stop, do a project, a couple of months. I don't exactly know, but it's short term. It's done once. We have to figure out what that is. Then we can ramp up the promotional machine. Other times I'll look at a client and I'll go, yes, we have to figure it out. But the odds that we will, once we discover what it is, it's going to blow up all the promotional work we've been doing, um, is low. Then I'll say, let's go. Let's go. Because probably what we'll be doing is we'll be taking what they're already articulating and just maybe making it a bit clearer or stronger, but we wouldn't be changing it, or we wouldn't be discovering it for the first time. So it's always on the radar. It's just, do we have to do it first, or can we do it while doing the other stuff?
Do you ever run into resistance about either the process or marketing itself? I mean, I would imagine by the time someone inquires with you, they've overcome at least a certain amount of their resistance. But let's say they have some resistance and they're sort of tire kicking to find out what's going on. Do you know what the reasons are that they're resistant to marketing?
So
Because I see this a lot with our clients. There's a lot of
yeah.
resistance to marketing.
So when it's just what's your core difference, what I was just describing, what's your brand, it's a piece of jargon I really try to avoid. There's resistance all the time.
Hmm.
It's not, it's a bit abstract. It's hard to grasp, especially if someone's been in practice for a few years and they're growing, and they've made it over the startup hump, and they may say to themselves, I don't know why we need to do this. It's already out there. Like I'm already, can't we just get going on the marketing, the promotion? I had that with one client. He had 4 offices, has 4 offices. And so I literally showed him, here's many competitors around each office. Here's what you say about yourself. Here's what they say about themselves. Number one, I don't understand what you're saying about yourself. I cannot decipher the wording. And number two, when I put you side by side with them, man, you sound the same. So I don't understand it, but man, you sound the same anyway. So why am I going to pick you? You've got better hours. You're closer to the office. You take my insurance. None of the reasons why you think you're better or different, and certainly none of the reasons why you went to school in the first place. It's a convenience choice. It's not a clinical choice. So can we please do something about this? The other thing, and I tell people this, I'm like, look, here's the first thing you need to know about this project. It's kind of boring, right? At the end of it all, you get a report. Nobody, the day we all go, aha, that's it, that's amazing. Nobody knows about it yet. So you have to be okay with, we're doing a project, we're doing a report. It's not even a website where you turn the switch on, ta-da. There's no ta-da with what's the difference, what's the brand, how do we say it? The ta-da comes afterwards when you start promoting it. Other than that, why are people generally resistant to marketing? I mean, I haven't really asked. I have a couple of guesses because I haven't really asked anybody. So why did you say no? It could be anything from, I'm not sure I need this. I'm not sure I believe you. I say this, I used to say it more. I love marketing, but I hate my industry because Tracy, as we speak right now, there's a bunch of people, it's not like you need to get licensed or pass a test to say, call yourself, a marketer, a marketing agency, a marketing consultant. You don't. If you have a pulse, you can start saying this. And as we speak, an army of marketers is approaching and assaulting doctors, dentists, providers with silly things that are, unasked for, they're off point. And even if Dr. X doesn't know thing one about marketing, they can stare at an email or whatever and go, that just doesn't seem to add up because they get logic trains and they're always missing. It just makes it harder for the rest of us to kind of bust through that. So there's like industry distrust. That's another one, I think. And we just try really hard and we say, here's your market, here's the marketing plan we propose, here's what's in it, here's why everything that's in it is in it. And we just try to explain it really well because people want to know, they came with a problem. So if you buy an emotion and you justify with facts, the emotion's there when they say, look, I need help. And so you have to relate to that and have to agree with it. That's all true. And that has to be authentic. But then so why should we do this plan? I just try to make really, here's what's in it and here's why. There's just ultimately there's some level of distrust that says, I'm not sure. They don't know me that well. Nobody really knows me when we start talking. So if I do a poor job of, trying to bridge the gap, build a relationship, if I feel like it's a good fit, there could be that too. it's intangible. Marketing is intangible services.
Yeah.
Those are anybody's intangible services, harder to grasp. But then if you layer on the ocean of people who are saying silly things as we speak and all the other stuff, it's not it's not an easy purchase.
Yeah. I think my industry has a bit of that too, right? It's unregulated. There's a lot of people calling themselves coaches who don't know, what they're doing and how to really help people get results. Plus, being an intangible and results really leaning on the client can be a challenge. And I think for marketing, it's similar because you can't get overnight results. I mean, every once in a while, maybe there's a campaign that just knocks your
Harlot sounds
socks off.
easy. 30 patients
Yeah.
a day in 30 days. I'm like, sure, dude, go ahead.
Rock on. Good
Off
luck
you
with
go.
that. Money
Sure.
back guarantee. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I
100
mean,
patients in a month. Sure. Okay.
yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think one of the things that's so important, and certainly that I'm sure our listeners will say the same. I've definitely seen it in our client, I keep want to call our clients patients, in our clients, is integrity. They can smell a lack of integrity from a mile away. And
Yeah.
so and some of them have had the experience of a disintegrous marketing person, and so that can be a challenge. I have people on my bench that I recommend, and I'm like, my name is behind this, my name is on this, and so there's
Yeah.
no way I would recommend someone to you that would try to sell you something that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I did that. I referred a client to one of my marketing people that I work with, and she texted me later. She's like, "Thanks so much for that referral. I ultimately suggested that they shouldn't work with me, and here's why." And she's like, it's hard to turn business away, but when they have a need that's actually something that fits with what we can do, they'll
Yeah.
probably think of me. And she's like, I told them straight up, I could sell you
Yeah.
this, but
Yeah.
I don't think you'd get any results from it. And it would just be a waste of everybody's time and energy. And I want you to be successful. And that goes a long way. And from the interaction that you and I have had, you're very upfront like that too. And I think that level of integrity is probably, I'm guessing, one of the main reasons that any
So,
client with trepidation would say yes to
yeah.
working with you.
I just view it as it's the I told you so conversation. I'm like, have it now rather
Yeah,
than 6 months from now. It's like, because
totally.
nobody's going to remember it. They're going to be upset anyway.
Mhm.
We all just lost in that.
Yeah.
Some days I wish, I don't know about you for coaching, but for me, there are days where I wish my industry would create an exam so serious you had to quote sit for it. And it
Yeah,
would just weed out so much crap.
for sure. Yeah.
I wish, because I mean, I could load my resume up with, I don't know, certifications and credentials and things. And I look at them, I go, they don't mean anything in marketing. Oh my God, the best this, the best that. No, because I know it doesn't mean anything. And so
Yeah.
why would I don't, anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
But they're out there, maybe in your industry too, as we speak. Dr. X is getting an email that's useless again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, doctors in particular people in healthcare are very used to being pitched all the time. So they're going to have a really good radar for BS, the BS ometer.
Mhm.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
yeah.
It leaves a smell. Yeah. Interesting. So I think since we were talking about like being in integrity and like being upfront and honest, what realistically is kind of like a time frame in which a campaign, and you can define what that would be, would yield results?
It's a good question, and I get it. It's such a hard one to answer, and it's not trying to evade the question. So we in our agency, we deal mainly with the organic side of life. So a lot of SEO. The benefit of that is once you get, and it means rankings, right? And
Mhm.
it means rankings in search. So the benefit is once you get up there, those rankings tend to be stickier than paid ads, and they tend to
Mhm.
be clicked higher. I've heard the rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months, and that's not bad. Um, but there's it depends on the industry. So general dentistry, man, oh man, it's an
Oh yeah.
ocean of competition. So that's
Mhm.
going to be closer to 6 months, if that, maybe longer. If you're really rare, then it's going to be shorter. It depends on your competition sitting still and not changing anything. It's hard to believe that in an ocean of competitors, everybody's sitting still. It's not true. And so it's hard to say. And there's other ways to like, you know, I'll say mess with search rankings. So here's an example. Um, what's a good example? So Pediatrics Practice X has six doctors in the practice. In a Google listing, you can have a listing for the practice, and then you could have six more listings, one for each doctor. So that's seven listings, just them vying for search results, on top of all the other pediatricians, all the other, in whatever geographic area. And Google likes to shrink the geography. Google's presumption is that whenever somebody searches for anything, they want what's geographically closest to them. That's great for a dry cleaner. It's great for a gas station. It's a lot less relevant for many specialties, many parts of the world of private practice. And yet here we are. And that's before you throw in other search ranking results like directories, like the top 10 best in Yelp, top 10 here, what ZocDoc has to say, what HealthGrades has to say. And they're tough to jump over in search rankings results because Google really likes those sites. They're big, they're hefty, so competition. So when somebody, how long is it going to take me to get to the top of page one? I really try to assess that up front. And there's once or twice where I've said to people, I'm really afraid to spend money on this, but look at these search results, like mental health, like counseling. Man, is it hard because you've got Psychology Today and HealthGrades and Yelp, and there's more and more and more directories. And my shingle hanger, who's great at what he or she does, is asking me, what's it going to take to jump over all of those? It's either going to take a long time, thousands of dollars a month, which doesn't make much sense, or join the directories. Why don't you just join them? Let's see what that. So that's why. But long-winded answers to say, here's the best answer I can give you. It's hard to say exactly. So if you're looking at a marketing agency, and they won't, and they're like, look, it's hard to say. It's 3 to 6 months, but I'm not really going to sign my name to that. Then if you contract with them, make sure the contract's got a good out clause, right? Because there's a lot of marketing agents that'll say you're in it for a year and you can leave early, but you still owe us all the money. What if it takes longer than that? What if things you said, we're month to month, so you can leave whenever you want. We prefer you stay as long as it's working and we like each other. But that's the way where I'm like, I can't guarantee you anything on top of all the other things you can't guarantee, but I'm not a hostage taker. We're not a hostage takers. So we get it. We understand. That's the best that that's how we address that. It's not the greatest answer, but it's an honest answer.
But it's the honest answer. And sometimes, I don't know, I'm thinking of that movie with Tom Cruise where he's like, you can't handle the truth, like it's sometimes the truth is a little hard to hear. And this helps people have a more realistic expectation heading into potentially engaging with a marketing professional. And, it's my understanding that when we think of marketing, it's at least a medium-term game. Like it's not something, unless you already have all these pieces in place and you can just like do something and your people love you and they drop everything and come, which seems kind of rare. Like it's going to take time. It's just going to take time. And it's also something that I think requires consistency and course correction. Like, I don't know what your period of time is before you make adjustments.
Yeah. And everything's moving in real time, right? So your competition's moving in real time. Google tweaks their algorithm at least once a month, sometimes major, sometimes minor. It's a lot of reaction. Yeah, Google, it's like this formula for Coca-Cola. Google has managed to keep its algorithm, although everybody on planet Earth uses it. They've managed to keep it a remarkably well-kept secret. And so it's just not an easy game. And I wish marketing, trials, cause effect was as clean as many clinical trials are for like a new pharmaceutical or whatever. But marketing is not a clinical science. Marketing is a social science. It's about people's behavior, and people are rarely consistent or on time or whatever that you would want to depend on. When I was getting my MBA, I read a couple of research papers, and marketing professor X was studying this or that. And the way to draw the cause and effect, they had to completely wash away real life. And so in this highly controlled environment that was fantasy land, our cause effect worked. But then if you came back to real life, it wouldn't. And so that's just the nature of marketing. It's just the nature of marketing. Consistency is what matters. What's different and valuable about you matters. Even after you get to the top of page one, it doesn't mean all those people who see you're going to choose you anyway. That matters. So not to make excuses for it, it's just that's real life. That's why it's so much fun, you know?
Yeah. Well, maybe the straight answer to that question is it depends, which is the answer that everybody loves, right?
Unsatisfying answer ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the wah.
Yeah.
But it's the truth. And I think that that's the important piece. And I think that because there are, shysters and people who are lacking integrity in the field, they give marketing such a bad name. And I think that's one of the reasons that it's important to have this conversation, to share this with our listeners, because like marketing is especially if you're a younger practice, a younger business, it is hugely integral to your growth. And it can be, going back to what we talked about earlier, really robust down to patient experience, down to what you do to engage in the community. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of ways to do it that don't just have to be Google ads or whatever, right? Like I think that was a big takeaway for me. Like that's going in the show notes, right? Like be sure to listen to this part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I think that
You,
helps
you
with the
raised
misunderstanding.
Yeah, and you raised a good point. Think of if you're going to go choose some outside marketing agency or consultant or whatever, put it through the same paces as if you were going to hire somebody to do the same work. So if you're going to hire somebody, you do a check, you check references, you'd ask, you try to get a lot of information. And did they get results would be but one of a few things you'd want to know. Do they have, do they have integrity? Are they honest? Do they show up on time? Do they do what they say they're going to do? Um, I, it seems to me that a lot of people, when they're looking at marketing, they got results and they kind of, okay, great. Or they just stop the investigation. Get references. Did this person show up? Did they do, if they preach consistency, did they do it? Were they responsive? Were they, you're spending, it's an expense versus a W-2, whatever, but you need that resource to do certain things. And so treat it the same. I've been asked for references before. I'm happy to give them. You got to treat them the same way, right? Of course, I'm going to give you the best ones, right? But
Yeah.
but that's what anybody would do. Check around, interview more than one, treat it with the same way, and because you're going to be spending real money, hoping to get a real return, just like you would with an employee. So treat it the same way.
I love that. Perhaps that's your parting wisdom, which is, yeah. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you and your agency?
So a few ways. So on LinkedIn, Carl White, with Carl with a C, and then White like the color. The agency's name it's a mouthful. MarketVisory Group. So Market, and then V as in Victor, ISORY, second word group. MarketVisoryGroup.com. That's an easy way. Our podcast, it's called Practice Care, one word. You can find it that way. You won't learn about the marketing agency, but you'll hear, we've got over 100 episodes now on private practice business issues. So any questions you've got, it's a growing chance we've answered it through one guest or another. So check that out. And then, those are good ways.
Wonderful. We'll make sure that everything's really easy to find with clicking straight from the show notes. So,
thank you.
Yeah. So, well, in the event that I didn't ask you something that you wish I had, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think we actually hit a pretty good, I would say, get a handle on your numbers even before you think about marketing, really. I mean, you just pick the 3 or 4 numbers, work with your accountant or your coach or your advisor, whoever it is, and say, look, once a month, I need to know what's going on. They're going to celebrate because they've probably been asking you to do that for a while. It's just not something you can outsource, and then, depending on the health or lack of health of this or that, then you can start to get more granular about what you ought to be doing, and where you ought to be spending more money or cutting back or whatever it is. Start there.
Sage advice. Carl White, thank you so much for coming on. Really enjoyed having you on the show.
Thank you. It's been great. I really appreciate it.
Wow, what an incredible conversation with Carl. I hope you found his insights on healthcare marketing as valuable as I did. From understanding your unique value proposition to creating a consistent patient experience, Carl shared so many practical strategies for growing your private practice with integrity. One of my favorite takeaways was Carl's emphasis on the importance of understanding your numbers and setting realistic expectations for your marketing efforts. It is not easy to navigate the world of healthcare marketing, but with the right approach and mindset, you can attract the patients that you want to serve and make a meaningful impact in your community. If you enjoyed this episode and want to connect with other healthcare providers who are passionate about building thriving private practices, I invite you to join Thriving Practice Community, a modern community of practice for ambitious healthcare entrepreneurs worldwide. Our community is a space where you can learn from experts like Carl, share your own experiences, and get support from peers who understand the unique challenges and opportunities of leading a private practice. To learn more about Thriving Practice Community and how you can get involved, head over to thrivingpracticecommunity.com. We'd love to have you join us on this journey of growth and success. So thank you again to Carl White for sharing his wisdom with us today. If you want to learn more about Carl and his work at MarketVisory Group, be sure to check out the links in our show notes. And if you found value in this episode, please take a moment to rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Your help supports us reach more healthcare providers just like you who are looking to build thriving practices. Until next time, remember, with the right strategies and mindset, you have the power to realize the full potential of your practice. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep making a difference in the lives of your patients. See you next time.